This is Too Many Words with Jayme Bedingfield. Welcome to the show. This is my very first podcast episode, and I'm pretty excited to be doing it. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. I love listening to podcasts. I'm a general podcast fan, and it's been something that I've been toying with in the back of my head for quite a while. So I finally got my stuff together and put this this show together here. Later on in the show, I'll be talking with my guest, Jayme Jones. She is an extremely talented writer. She's the author of Monochrome, which is an incredibly moving fantasy novel. I'm currently reading it. I'm about 3/4 in, and wow, it's a remarkable story. The meaning behind the words come through in this mysterious and engaging way. The more I read, the more I'm folded into Abigail's world. And Jayme Jones, I will also be calling her Hannah. Her and I met, both of our books are published through Booktrope. And, you know, we did a couple events together, and I've invited her onto the show, and she's agreed. So I'm looking forward to talking to her later. And so we have that to look forward to. So how's everybody doing tonight, or today, or whenever it is that you're listening to this? Mid-morning, early dawn? I'm tired today. Daylight savings. You know, Sunday I woke up, I was completely preoccupied with the fact that it was my daughter's birthday, and I was not thinking about daylight savings. So when I woke up and I saw that it was 7:30, I was like, wow, I slept in. It's not something I do. I mean, I have young children, and I have had back-to-back puppies. So, yeah, I'm an early riser, even though I'm not a morning person. And, but yeah, so I saw that 7:30, and I was like, oh, I slept in, and I felt like, you know, I got a one over on the day. And then I realized it was daylight savings time, and I didn't actually sleep in, but the positive effects of thinking that were already there. So here I'm, like, talking to other people. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm affected by it this year. And 7 o'clock rolled around, and I hit the wall pretty bad, and I've kind of been lingering near the wall ever since. You know, because the hour off, you know, I was waking up an hour before the kids needed to wake up to get ready for school. I would sit and drink coffee, and that's when I would get my reading done. And a quiet, mostly dark house with coffee and books. I mean, I'm a routine creature. I like my routines, but that especially, I really like that routine. But all week so far, I've been running around the house without any socks on, you know, guzzling coffee back, and, you know, directing my kids and the dogs, like, you know, a person that directs stuff. Yeah, so I'm tired, and but that's, you know, everyone's tired. But yeah, I was just kind of lingering around the sofa until 11. I was taking notes, and, you know, I've actually been pretty productive work-wise, except for the fact that I've just mostly been laying on the sofa while doing it. Reclined work. Finally, I gotta drag myself to the neighborhood Trader Joe's and fill the cart with some various items. I like going to Trader Joe's. I like the food. I like the simple atmosphere. I despise most grocery stores. I get easily overwhelmed and overstimulated, and grocery stores are designed to overwhelm and overstimulate. You know, there's all the stuff competing for my attention. You know, the goldfish and the beer that's made with apples that tastes like cherries, and you know, it takes me forever to decide whether or not I want crinkle chips or baked chips, and all those options and labels, and most of the people at the grocery store don't want to be there. And there's this negative vibe, and it, you know, it stresses me out. But no, Trader Joe's isn't like that for me. And finally, one has come to the neighborhood, and it's exciting. It's exciting stuff. I like living near a grocery store that doesn't trigger any any nervous tendencies of mine. So that's good stuff. But yeah, so I'm kind of coming out of a bit of a book fog. I've been working on 2 different novels for a good chunk of time. One of the books is the second in the Ruby Dawson saga, titled The Immensely Powerful, and I've been picking away at that and figuring out what's, in store next for Ruby and her compatriots. And there's been some challenges, but overall I'm really happy with what it's looking like, and I'm excited to share it with everyone. And yeah, so that project is getting ready to be in my editor's hands. And she's another author, and she will be on the show next week. So stay tuned for Katrina out there. But yeah, so I've got that going on. And also, while I've been, on and off with the various phases of that project with Ruby, I've also been working on a contemporary coming-of-age story for young adults. And the working title for that right now is A Story Unwritten. And I've been, this story concept has been on the back burner for such a long time. And in November, during NaNoWriMo 2015, NaNoWriMo 2015, and I did the first draft during that month, 53,000 words in that month, and that was after a few months of heavy outlining. I mean, I knew where I was taking my characters and stuff, and I've spent a good chunk of time editing that and been shopping that around and, waiting to hear back from agents and such. So keeping myself busy while I do that, so I don't pick up my nail biting habit. But I'm feeling optimistic and delusional, and so that's good. And yeah, so, and then I'm going to start a new project, again, something that's been on the back burner for a while, and I'm going to start exploring that further in April. So yeah, exciting stuff. But yeah, I like to keep a rotating flow of projects. It's good for me to hop around. There are so many phases to, getting a book from the very, very early stages to publication. So it helps to focus on one project while waiting on something from another. But yeah, I'm always policing myself, because even though my plate is already so full, that doesn't keep me from adding more onto it. I get so excited. I get these ideas. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'm like the goldfish of to-do lists. I'll keep doing things until I explode. I am trying to take my stress levels seriously, though. It's bad. Stress is bad. It's proven over and over again, and we all know it. And I'm assuming everyone has those moments where they lose their shit on some random stupid thing that happens and then feel all shaky later. I know I'm not the only one that happens to. All right. Yeah, so, and I'm learning to deal with trying to stay even keel and not react. I react, and, that's not always a bad thing. What writing all the time and living where I do, that was all, reacting on, yes, let's do this right now. But, there's moments where, somebody speeds past me while I'm walking the dogs in a 25 zone, and I freak out, and then my dog starts barking, and the poor thing has, car anxiety, because I, lose my shit every time a car goes, what I think too fast. I mean, it is too fast, but yeah. So to go back to how I like my little routines, and, I compile all these little rituals and fill them in my day, and at the end of the day, when I've done all these things, I can look back at it and be like, no, I did all my little things. And one of my favorites is I walk my 3 dogs every morning. I have Sally, my golden retriever, who is 6, and Jake, my Rottweiler, who is almost 2, and then I have their son, Bilbo Baggins. we had an unplanned litter this summer, and we have since put certain preventions in place to keep another litter from happening, but that puppy litter I loved it, and Bilbo's awesome. But yeah, I love my 3 dogs very much, and they all have, they all have their quirks. I work with them daily, and there are some places for me to improve, but I'm pretty good with them. I'm inconsistent about letting them on the sofa, but that's a hard one sometimes. They're snuggly and I'm tired and I want to snuggle with a dog, and other times they're wet from being outside and I'm tired and I just want them to lay down, and I don't want them to get the sofa wet, but that's the price of doing business. Anyway, where I was going to, I got a little sidetracked. Every day after my kids get on the bus, I walk my dogs one at a time. The solo time is important, and a couple of them are over 100 pounds, so and there's moments where there's some pulling still in some of them. So one at a time, and it's really nice, one dog at a time. And there's these, I walk in these nature trails behind my house, which is better than the busy roads where I do the car yelling and give my dogs the anxiety. But yeah, my rhythm was getting really messed with for a couple of weeks. This guy started walking his dog without a leash during the same time that I walk my dogs, and it's a large, full-grown German Shepherd without a leash. And in all honesty, I'm not against leashless dogs when the dog is clearly well-trained and the owner has the situation under control. The dog is close to the person. There's clearly a bond there that goes deeper than any leash. Woods and beach and play and fetch. I totally, I get it. And I love dogs, but it really bugs me when the dog is clearly, that relationship between the person and the dog is not there. And the dog is all over the place, because not only is it dangerous, possibly dangerous for other people, it's definitely dangerous for that dog. I mean, I live in a first-tier suburb, totally populated area, cars everywhere. It's just not safe. And there's so much of it, and it bugs me. Yeah, so, and certainly not when the dog is blocks, or in this case, a lot of nature trail, in front of the person. And so, yeah, no, thank you. The first time I had a run-in with this guy and his dog was a Saturday, and I was with my 7-year-old daughter, as well as our dog Bilbo, who thankfully is the timid one, and he kind of just hid behind me and my daughter. And the dog was non-aggressive, but he jumped kind of right up and was sniffing Bilbo and sniffing my daughter's feet, and the guy was completely out of sight for, I don't know, a good chunk of time. And then he didn't apologize, and he said something to the effect of, in 2 years, this hasn't been a problem. And this became an everyday occurrence. Every time I would walk one of my dogs, there was this dog just all over the place. But yeah, then after about 3 weeks of this little new addition to my dog routine, I complained loud enough, and he leashed the dog, and it's been a continued thing. I see him less regularly now, so maybe he just walks at a different time, but when I do see him, the dog is on a leash. I wish people were more considerate. I'm not saying that I always am, but sometimes it really just hurts my head to think about the complete lack of kindness. It concerns me. But yeah, I've been trying to get less bent out of shape, out of the things I can't control. It's an important skill to learn, and truth to accept. And I've got kids, and kids, what they do is they watch what you do. We are the kids' teachers. It's so if I'm a total basket case about everything, then chances are that they will be, or at least one of them will be. I've recently discovered something about my about myself. When I write the first draft of a novel, I never include the first act, even though my outline says that I do. It always feels good to. It feels like a win to figure out part of my writing process. I'm constantly inspecting it and making notes and, putting in little quotations like, remember this next time, and sticky note, and trying to try to, give myself clues so I can lead myself back to these sparks of wisdom and inspiration. But, and I look at myself, 5 years ago and compare to, where I was in my career then to now. And, I feel like I can look at the future optimistically. Just gotta keep at it. Life is interesting to go through as I plan stories and create worlds and the people in it. At least one thing happens a day where I'm like, I might be able to use that. Over the weekend, and for those of you that read my blog, you've already heard me kind of go on about this, but the power went out. There was this windstorm, and, I have to admit, as inconvenient as having your power out for, 15 hours or however long it was close to that. I enjoy the sudden peace and simplicity, all the power going out. Things get a little weird, and they had already gotten weird, as it was like approaching midnight, and the power still wasn't on. But at the same time, it was, Sunday nights, my plan was to play a little bit of WoW with my husband and then watch The Walking Dead without the power. We couldn't, play video games or watch TV. And instead we lit a candle and we drank some cider and just talked, and it was nice. And, I worry and I think about, all the inputs and how busy and the world is, and there's so much going on, and, the way everything's set up, there's flashes of check this out and check that out. And yeah. And I was thinking about, electricity and how much we all rely on it as I was laying in bed and listening to the buzz of my neighbor's generator. And I was thinking, I was toying with the thought, how long would it take for an area to not have power, for just chaos to ensue? I mean, just one night, and like all the restaurants 20 minutes north of us were just jam-packed, because most of us, like me, can't cook without electric. We have electric stoves and our refrigerator. And so I started, I enjoy the post-apocalyptic concept, and it's one of my favorite genres. And I'm toying around with some concepts, and I use the opportunity of not having electricity to think about life with electricity. And I know I'm not saying that I'm going to use that or anything. And I know there's that show that, I don't know if it's still on, but they did something with no electricity. Revolution? I wasn't so much of a fan of that. But as we talk about, or as I talk to you about the end of the world and post-apocalyptic realities, I'm reminded of my guest for you guys tonight, or today, again, back to that, H.M. Jones. Her and I were talking, I believe, yesterday and on Facebook about some post-apocalyptic preparations. So on this note, I'd like to welcome H.M. Jones to the show. Hey, Hannah. Thanks for being my very first podcast guest.
I'm super honored. I love being on podcasts.
Nice. Yeah, I've been a big podcast fan for a while, and I've been wanting to do this, so finally.
Yeah, I'm excited you have one now. You're going to be big time.
Let's hope. But before I brought you on, I was talking about how, the windstorms and power outages we had over in Western Washington this weekend and part of Monday. A couple hours into the night, and I started seriously just thinking about, like, how long would it take without power in a certain area for things to break down?
Not long is the answer to that. I actually had the exact same train of thought, and then I went to zombies, which sometimes it just happens. Like sometimes my mind just goes to zombies, and it's not because I'm watching anything about zombies. Just like, okay, so if society collapsed, how well would we do? And the power outage made me realize that most of us would just die. We would all die.
It's so true. And my mind goes to zombies all the time. I mean, I am pretty obsessed with both Z Nation and Walking Dead, so I do have a lot of it pumping through my head. But yeah, I mean, I'll be taking groceries out of the car and I'll be like, zombies.
Yeah, I'm always thinking, where would I go if the zombies attacked? And while looking at these fences, I'm like, yeah, that's the farm I would head for right there. And there's no reason for me to be thinking this because I usually don't watch zombies because they give me nightmares, which is hilarious. But I'm always thinking if there were zombies, that's where I would head. And that's where I went when the windstorm blew all my power out. I said, okay, I might not survive the zombie apocalypse. Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. And there was all these sirens and stuff going on in the background. And I'm just like, is it happening?
It's possible. I just watched this episode. It made me think it might.
Well,
Yep.
and Sunday happened to be my daughter's birthday, and
Oh,
luckily the power just seemed to like it didn't affect her birthday party spot. And then we ended up not eating at home because everything we have to cook, we have the electric stove and all that stuff, and
yeah,
it
me too.
yeah. So we headed to a restaurant, and that plate, I mean, the 15 minutes north of us was just like slammed with, people that couldn't cook. And I was just like, well,
But it went okay.
yeah, it did. I mean, the birthday itself was, my daughter was happy, but the dinner, we were at the restaurant for like 3.5 hours.
Oh my God. My kids would not stand for this.
You know what? My kids, they started to get a little cartoony at the end, but I
Yeah.
think I was worse behaved than they were.
That's probably actually how it usually is for me too. I'm the one that gets grumpy.
Yep.
And they're probably not being any different. It's just me being a crank.
Well, and I usually set the stage for it too, because I'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I'm unhappy about this," and then they're like, "Yeah, me too."
Me too, Mom. I mirror that crap. I mean, this is fine. Yeah.
It's all good. Let's be positive. They're always watching.
Yay, windstorms.
But I mean, other than some of the inconveniences, the quiet was nice. It was.
Yeah, I kind of loved it. I built a chicken coop because we didn't have power, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna build a chicken coop because I wanted to, and I couldn't dink around online, and I couldn't do my edits, so I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do something else, and it was kind of fun.
Well, I saw those pictures. I was like, well, now that's something to do with, that's a way to handle a power outage. That was impressive chicken coop.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just glad that I had pre-charged my husband's drill. Otherwise, there's no way I would have done that. Not with just a wimpy old screwdriver. No way. I would not have been that ambitious.
Yeah, that would have been intense. I mean,
But that was the point where I thought maybe I'd be okay at the zombie apocalypse, but not perfect. It's like, well, I can build a chicken coop.
Well, that's something. I mean, that's not me. I can't not thinking about that too. I was like, I don't even know. Like my wilderness skills they're none. And that's where you'd want to go. You wouldn't want to stay in like the super populated area.
I really feel like you should live out in the middle of the ocean. I mean, they can't swim. Zombies don't swim. I feel like people should be living on boats more. And I just don't see this, and I'm like, come on, why are you not living on a boat right now? Or in a tree house? Do they climb trees? They don't. They don't climb trees.
Bring in the Ewok village.
Yes, the Ewok village. That's what I'm saying. It's not hard to outsmart a zombie. I feel like sometimes it looks really hard on TV. I'm like, why aren't they living in trees right now? This is just nonsense. They can't climb trees. Come on.
You know what? That is one thing. Like with all the, I haven't seen like one like tree fort. People can't sneak up on you when you're in trees.
Yeah, well, they better be listening to this Walking Dead because I'm expecting to see tree forts. I've been expecting it and it hasn't happened. It's been very disappointing.
Well,
I feel like maybe they don't deserve to live if they can't think up high.
Seriously. Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, there's some serious issues with like how people like get the advantage on them because they're like watching them before they are. Like, just take to the trees.
Exactly. Come on.
So,
Anyway, I won't bring up zombies anymore.
so I could. Are you kidding? I could talk about zombies for days on end. I mean, I really could. I love it. I love it, and it also terrifies me. But
It does. It's very scary.
it is.
I think it's because humanity scares me more than like real fantastical things. When I write about things, I don't write about like things I don't think could happen, like dolls coming alive and things like that. I actually write about things that are just scary, and it's usually scary people
Hmm.
because people terrify me more than anything. And I think that's what zombies are about. It's about terrifying people.
I completely agree with you there. On a couple of fronts, people also terrify me, and like, part of what comes with the whole zombie, setting storytelling is like the horrible things that everybody's doing to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways,
It's not even the zombies that are the monsters.
yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's if anything, like especially the way Walking Dead does it is that the zombies are just part of the setting,
Right.
and that it has some obstacles in it. But yeah, what that's the ugliness in society is really comes out.
Hmm. Yeah, and I kind of think about that, and I think, is that how things would happen? And I want to think better. I do. But then I watch like Donald Trump rallies. I'm like, well, maybe not. maybe it would be like that. I don't know. I hope not. I hope not. But I see ugliness, and I think that that's what it's about. It's about, okay, psychologically speaking, are humans good or evil? And that's what makes it interesting to me. That's why the zombie apocalypse, I think, is even an interesting thing. Because people are like, why zombies? So gross. It's not really about the zombies.
It's so true. I mean, yeah, it's the the moral fabric of humanity is really tested, and it is so close to you know so many of the problems that we're dealing with. I mean, I think it was 2 Christmases ago. I was in a parking garage for a Target 2 nights before Christmas Eve,
Hmm.
and I'm all the way up at the parking garage, and I'm like level 8, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden I like just got in the car, and all the parking is just totally gridlocked, and there was an accident towards the bottom of the parking garage, which
Oh, gee.
caused a whole backup. And 15 minutes into it, and people were getting out of their cars and throwing stuff and going nuts. And I was like, what's happening?
That's not gonna help.
I was like,
Yeah,
out
that
the,
mob mentality can be crazy.
it's, yeah. Uh,
Well, that person's yelling. I might as well.
huh. And beeping and stuff. And it was crazy. It was like 3 hours before I got out. And I'm like texting my husband, and he's like, just breathe. It's going to be okay.
I probably would have just went back inside. Never mind. I'm cool. Yeah, it's an interesting world. I mean, I see a lot of beauty, and I try not to focus on the sad things in anything I in write or do, even in my daily life. But I often go back to, I get why people write about those kind of psychological conundrums, because I think it's interesting, and relevant.
Totally. No, it's pretty fascinating. And I'm with you. I try not to focus on it. I mean, some days it's harder than others. I was actually just talking about that before I brought you on, and before I started talking about the end of the world. I was talking about how to, focusing on positive stuff and
Hmm.
all that. But so I've been reading Monochrome,
All right.
and I'm pretty floored by the whole book. I'm on chapter 14, and I was reading some reviews before I actually started reading it, and one of the reviewers said something, compared it to adult Wonderland,
Oh yeah, yeah, like an Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
which I mean I love that book, and it's the fantasy world that you take out of so much emotion and truth. It's awesome. It's really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. It was funny because people say, "Oh, how do you create a world like that?" And I was on a panel once about world creation. And I think it's probably because people believe in monochrome. They feel like that's a believable place. And it was accidental. It was completely accidental that I thought of this. And it wasn't cliche dream or anything like that. It was just something that when I thought about depression, people kept asking me, "Hey, Hannah, what does it feel like to be depressed?" Because I have major depressive issues sometimes with being bipolar. And it's not really something that's easy to describe because it's sort of a lack of feeling, and it's a lack of emotion, and it's just this void that kind of sucks you in. Um, and there doesn't have to be any reason or rhyme behind it, really. It just happens sometimes. But there can be, contributing factors. And I thought, if I had to actually describe it to somebody, I would describe it as a different world. And all of that just clicked. All of a sudden, I said, it is a different world. It's like you're living in a different world, and that world is terrible. It's terrifying, and confusing, and only a couple people get it. Only some people get it, and those other people, like, when somebody else says to me, "I know what you're feeling," it's an immediate connection. And so I use that kind of within the plot, when Ishmael and Abigail get together, because they understand each other in a way that other people wouldn't understand them,
and
or aren't human enough in this place to understand.
That relationship between them and what you were just talking about, it's true. And I also suffer from depression and anxiety, and like you were saying, it's a different world.
It is, yeah.
And you're looking through something. You're looking at your world and you're seeing something different, and it's a really powerful book. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, thank you. I was trying when I wrote it. I didn't want it to depress people, and that was like my main thing. Is like, oh gosh, I really don't want it to depress people, but I do want it to kind of like show how it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, when you're writing a book that has this underlying theme, you don't want the theme to take over. You really want the book to be a book.
Uh-huh.
You just want it to complement it. And so I think that was the hardest part about writing it. And I think I got through that by putting in those like memories, those little powerful moments of beauty, and and then also there's just a plot driving it behind that. But yeah, I'm happy that people can relate to it, and I'm sometimes very happy that people can't relate to it. They say, "Well, I don't know what it's like, but she did a good job making a world out of it," and so that's nice to hear that some people don't know, but they could still relate to the world. So that was good.
Yeah, reading reviews, where I always tell myself, that I won't focus on them, and it's hard not to. And I mean, especially, I am, I'm seeking them for the highly capable, and I'm, reaching out to people, and I am interested in, what people say. But it's at least for me, it's hard to sometimes, not always, but to pick, different, decide what I'm going to take from it, if anything. And
yeah, and actually, I did benefit from a few reviews that came in, because this was like, this is a first novel. I'd never written a full book before. I actually didn't have a plan to ever. I've always wanted to write books, but it wasn't a planned thing. I just did it. It was there, and so I did it. But there are things that I think, when I think back, oh, I could do that better. And I think that because of the reviewers, and some people just put a good deal of effort into what they say. And I used to read them all the time. I don't as much anymore because I don't know. I'm busy writing probably. But
that's a good reason.
yeah, and I'm trying to write the prequel to it, and so I'm attempting to just kind of focus on it. But I got some really great feedback saying, I wish this would have happened. And I kind of think this was a great point about it, and this was a slower point. And as a first-time author, I think that's just really invaluable to be able to read what readers like, and try to work with that. I'm not going to completely change the way I write, but it's helpful. And I haven't really received any very negative reviews. I think I received like 1 2-star at one time. That was like, oh, I don't actually agree with that, but I let it go, because that's what you do as an author. When you put your words out there, you put your world out there, it's no longer yours.
It's true.
It belongs to your readers, and so it's not your business to tell your readers whether they should like it or not. I mean, it's up to them to like it or not like it, and it's okay if they don't. And I really had to just keep telling myself that it's okay. It's okay if they don't love your book, because not everybody's going to love your book. But it's funny now, my fans, like, I'm getting more people to review it. They will fight with people who don't like my book, and so I don't really have to do it anyway.
That's awesome.
I don't like them to do that, but it's just funny that people are that passionate about it, because I remember I still have those books that I am that passionate about and that I would fight for. And so it's kind of a beautiful thing to be able to be a part of something that you love.
No, that is awesome.
And your book is great, by the way. I loved it. And I'm very excited to read more.
Yeah, oh man, Ruby, I mean, she was somebody that I was just kind of, I've been dealing with her for about 7 years, and only recently do I feel like I've gotten her on the path that she belongs.
Yeah, she has. I like that she just has this kind of just terribly tough life, because, it's just she she has so much to contend with, and you're just so interested in her and how and what's she going to choose to do, and how is she going to integrate all this crap into her life and fix it. And she is so strong-willed and interesting that it's just kind of, and very flawed. And some people really dislike Abigail. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be on a panel about unlikable heroines. I didn't realize people didn't like her, so it was funny that they put me on this panel. I was like, does that mean people don't like my my lead? Okay.
That's funny.
But sometimes I was thinking, Ruby'd be one of those people that people didn't always like, but I love her because she's just so real. She's a person who makes mistakes, and I really like that.
Yeah, and I really wanted to, build a character who was really flawed and had all this, the cards that she was dealt were not in her favor. And, I wanted to, write about somebody where she would, kind of go past that. And, but it's, yeah, there were some people that were like, I just wanted to strangle Ruby. And
but that's okay, I think. I mean, it makes you invested.
Totally.
Also, I think that sometimes women get a bad rap when they do things that other male characters would do. And I write about that a lot when I blog. I write about the discrepancy between what a woman character is supposed to do and what a male character is supposed to do. And one of my most contentious articles was just writing that people are always assuming that the strong heroine is just such a thing now. It's just such a cliche. I can't name 50 strong heroines. Read many books with strong heroines anyway. I've been forced my whole life to read books about men, and every character has been a different character. Not, the fact that he was man didn't make a difference. He was a different character because he was a different character. And so I was trying to make the point that you don't have to like every character, just like you don't have to like every male character. You don't have to like every girl character either. They can be just very complex people, and that's a good thing.
No, totally. I agree. And then there is a lot of, a lot of stereotyping and, characters being in their certain roles, because of gender. Especially I find that a lot in young adults. So it is nice when you find that,
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful because some of my favorite, young adult writers, they don't care. They just write great characters, and they write great female and male characters. I love Lemony Snicket. When it comes to young adult characters, I just love both the girls and the guys he writes, because they're just genuinely interesting people. And so when I write something, I try to think, don't write a character based on, the standards that have been set forth. Do what he does and break the mold. And I try to do that, and I try not to be bothered when people say, "Oh, it's just another character who's a strong, heroine female character. We have enough of those. It's just something YA is doing right now." For one, there's a reason YA is giving us diverse characters. It's because YA is concerned with diversity, and they're interested in representing people, which just has been not done before. And I'm very lucky to live in a time where that's the case. But also, I just feel like, none of the characters, Katniss, Triss, all those, they say, oh, those two people are the same. They're very different people.
It's true.
And if you haven't read the books, that's fine, but don't say things like that. And if you have read the book and you see similarities, there's similarities in every person. Every person,
Hmm.
has these things that work for them and these things that don't work for them. But I just dislike when people say that. That's really making it black and white when that's not the case at all.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was actually, I just finished reading Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I don't know.
Oh man, yeah.
And I was actually just talking about that and how a lot of people associate that with *A Fault in Our Stars* by John Green. And aside from the teens having cancer,
Mhm.
there's very little in common.
Right, and they're just completely different authors with different voices. I really liked both of those books for different reasons.
Uh huh.
John Green has kind of a
Oh,
his voice is very different, and you can hear that carried out through all of his books, but
it's
it's
true.
just way more. I mean, I don't know. I don't see this. I see the similarities with the cancer, but I mean, it's okay to write books about the same things
Yes.
in a different way.
Hmm.
And I don't like that people simplify things like that because they're both very good books
Hmm.
by very different people. I love John Green. I'm a big John Green fan,
So am I. Um,
even though he makes me cry every time I pick up his books. I'm just
oh
like,
man,
come on, really? So sad.
I know. But yeah, no, he's amazing. He's some of his words have that, like weaken your knees. You're like, oh man, that was just an awesome paragraph.
Yeah, he's one of those authors where you have to read some of his sentences 6 times just to love it, just to feel it kind of wash over you. They're very poetic in some ways.
It's true.
And it sounds more like modern poetry. It sounds so simple when he says it, but you never would have thought about putting it that way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I really like his stuff. I don't care if anyone else does. I'm not really concerned about what people like. I love YA. I was the young adult area head for Sasquatch. I'm writing a YA book right now and querying it out to people. And I'm a very big proponent of YA because my first favorite book was by Tamara Pierce, and she is always my standard for what I love. And she wrote the most fierce, most wonderful fantasy books about strong women. And I was 7 when I picked up her book, and since then I've loved YA.
That's awesome. I would say that I love it too. I was Bridge to Terabithia was
Oh yeah,
that book changed. I mean, that book kind of started paving the path of me writing. I read that book and I was just like, wow, I want to make somebody feel that way.
yeah. That book was a read 3 times book for me. And it was like 3 times in a row. I read that book and I had to read it again.
Mhm.
I believe it was assigned to read, and other people were complaining about it, but I just thought it was gorgeous and sad and beautiful, and it was about humanity and about growing up, and I love that point in YA where you see somebody becoming something, going into the next step of their life. And I think that's a really important time for everybody that anybody can relate to, even women, even adult women and adult men, and that's why people are reading YA.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, there is so much emphasis, and with childhood and, teens and, all that, you're growing so much, you're turning into adult, you're growing at a quicker pace. But, I'm always telling my kids, like, I make mistakes all the time. I'm
Oh yeah.
learning every day. And I completely agree about that. And I'm
I
interested.
pretty much like any book about pinnacle moments. I liked a book about this person who was widowed as well, because it was this, I can't understand what that would be like, but it was just this pinnacle moment and this life-changing thing where she had to completely be a different person. Um, and I think that YA does that a lot.
Totally. I'm interested. So you're saying that you were writing another young adult novel that you're querying out. That interests.
Yeah.
I'm in a similar boat. I'm doing the same thing. So that interests me. How's it going?
Well, queries are hard. I mean, you just get rejected a lot. That's just how it is. Especially as a new author who, I'm doing well with reviews. I'm getting like awards now, but it took me about 5 years to get there. And it's just a really slow process to make a name for yourself without attaching yourself to a literary agent. And so you either have to spend your time trying to convince an agent to get you, or spend your time writing and convincing people that your work is worth reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I just took the latter path. And so when I query out, I queried only to people who accept unsolicited queries, which is a pretty small amount of people, especially in the fantasy realm. And most of them give something like a 6-month feedback time. And so it's slow going, but I really like the book and I kind of think it would benefit best from an already established audience. So I might even buckle down and try to find an agent. It's a good book and I'm interested in getting an artist on board with it too. And so it's a little bit more complicated than something I could independently publish probably.
Totally.
But, it's a hard road. I mean, it doesn't say a lot about your book when somebody turns it down, because I Speak by Lori Hall Sanderson is one of my favorite books. She said something. She sent like 1,500 queries for that. Think about being the idiot who passed up Harry Potter, for God's sake.
I know.
I mean,
I tell myself that every time I get a rejection, and I get
yeah, everybody gets rejected.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? I feel bad for the people who rejected her, because there was a reason they did so. And I feel bad because you know that these people are getting thousands of queries and they can't jump on everyone, and they didn't jump on that one.
Totally.
So I pretend that I am like that, though I'm nowhere near that awesome. So I try to do that to myself. And I'm on a panel for NorwestCon about rejections, and how you get over those, because people feel depressed and dejected afterwards. And honestly, I stopped feeling depressed about it. And I think it's because I'm past like 1,000 rejections. And after that point, you're just like, whatever.
It's true. It's true. You know what? The more you get them, because I would say I'm about 4 years into it myself, with about a year off where I was like, I need to readjust and think about what my goals are.
Yeah.
Take a lot of walks.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you get acquainted enough with the rejection part of it where you are, I'm able to shrug it off way more than I was, when I first started out. But I'm not good with patience. I'm not a patient person.
No,
Nobody's
neither
calm
am
with
I.
patience. So it's like, I'm less like, I don't feel the rejection from the rejection letter, but I'm like, okay, I'm ready to sell this thing.
And that's what it was with monochrome for me. I was like, this book is just hassling me. Like, it needs to be in a book, and it needs to have a cover, and it needs to have people reading it. And every rejection I got felt like they were wasting my time, and I was wasting my time. And I feel like that's less pressing now with this young adult book, because I have a publisher for the series that I'm writing right now, the saga. It's not going to be really a series. I'm just doing the prequel to Monochrome right now. But because I'm doing that and I have a publisher already set up, I can be more patient with my young adult one. But I'm not a patient person either. And if it doesn't happen that way, I'm just going to figure out how to do it myself.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. And I think, as I wait for, to hear back on this one, and I'm working on book 2 of Ruby Dawson's saga. That's, that's almost ready to be edited.
Oh, yay. Good.
So I'm excited about that. But,
don't finish Monochrome too quickly. I'm only in like chapters. No, it's like 7. Chapter 7.
It does help, though, to have multiple projects.
It does. Yeah. I mean, it gives you something to focus on when you're frustrated that something else isn't happening quickly.
Is that how you ended up getting into short stories, or was that?
Yeah, it is. Actually, for me, I love to write, and I write every day, no matter what. So sometimes it's blogging, sometimes it's poetry, especially if I'm depressed. I'm sorry, my poetry is depressing because I usually write it during my depression. But I have to write. I feel like this urge to do so. And sometimes I really feel like a short story just really takes a break from what you're doing. Sometimes I can't think of that next thing that Ishmael needs to be doing, or I'm sick to death of reading it or editing something else. And I like short stories because they become something, a little world in of themselves, and a little project that I can work on that still hones my skills, but doesn't take as much time.
Totally.
And I can give it to people for free, as little. Sometimes I get paid for them. I mean, I've had acceptances into anthologies in which, I've been paid for it. I got my short story A Light Storm of 2015 to the Masters of Time, and I have one right now that I believe will be accepted into a publication that's pretty good, and I'll be paid for that. But most of the time, I just post them because I think they're so fun, and people like reading short stories. It doesn't take a lot of time, and they get an entire little, you know, fulfilling story out of it. So.
And as a writer, it's fun because you get to kind of experience that finish and that full story, but at a much,
quicker pace.
And
that's probably why you like short stories too. Impatient people, I think, just are good for short stories.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's
on to the next one.
That's when I started doing it because I had these. I was juggling, book 2 of the Ruby Dawson saga and the young adult book that I was just talking to you about. And even then, I was just like, getting bogged down with plot and, not ready to do this one thing. And then I was able to, just totally, make up this, little world all by itself, wrap it up, and then put it on my blog. And it's like, I accomplished
something.
So
good.
Yeah.
It's so accomplished right now. I just wrote a whole story. Did you guys write a story today? No, you didn't. But I did. That's how I feel. I feel that accomplished when I write a short story. I read a whole story today. Yeah. Not a novel, but a story.
Well, that is the great thing about blogging too.
Yes.
And, you put something together, you make the words look all nice together, you hit publish, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this thing.
Exactly. No, I really do. I like blogging. People ask me, okay, do you like being on social media? I would say no, not really. To an extent, I do. I like to see my friends and family. But then it became a part of my book as well. And for a while, I was very uncomfortable with that. I didn't know what to do. And blogging was that doorway that made it comfortable for me because I got to write about violence against women. I got to write about rape culture. I got to write about depression. I got to write about mothering, and being bipolar. And those things are all kind of embedded into my writing, even though I write fantasy and sci-fi and, those kinds of things. So it was really nice because there's this little segue. Instead of me saying, buy my book, which you should never really do.
I hear that's frowned upon.
Yeah. And it's kind of, like, no. Yeah. I say that too. I say no when people ask me right out,
Yeah.
So I was
it's
like,
true.
It was creating this relationship with people that was deeper than that. And I started especially doing that when I went on to Gravity, which is a book trope imprint that deals with those kind of grave issues like sexual abuse and depression and things like that. And
it's an awesome
Rachel Thompson said, Hannah, you have a beautiful, way of sharing your real experiences that also carry into your fiction. And if people see that, they'll go to your fiction. You won't have to do anything except tell those stories. And so it's become a lot more manageable and a lot more interesting for me to do it. I actually enjoy it now.
That's awesome.
And it took a while to get there. I did not like it for a while.
No, I didn't either. And, I had kind of, I had stumbled into the publishing process with the original Ruby story 6 years ago. And actually, Rachel Thompson back then helped me, she guided me a lot. And she had given me a lot of advice.
She's really smart about this stuff.
She is. She's awesome.
She makes it seem easy.
She's actually how I originally found out about Book Trope. I saw like a tweet or something from her that said that she had just gotten Broken Pieces with Book Trope. And I'm like, let me look into that.
Yeah, I self-published it first. And then talked to a Book Trope author who introduced me to Rachel because he knew that I wrote about things like, depression, things like that. And so AC Fuller, who wrote The Anonymous Source, and I'm going to plug it because it's great. But I talked to her, and it was amazing to me just because it became a personal thing. And I think that's one thing I really like about this independent contract we're dealing with is that, excuse me, fighting a cold. Um, we get this like kind of hands-on help that I don't see um, in these big publishing houses unless you're an author that they really want to sell. And I feel like it doesn't matter so much if you're an author someone wants to sell, they're going to work with you. And I really like that.
Yeah. I'm really
Geez, sorry.
No,
Uh,
honestly, every time you cough, I've been taking the opportunity to have a sip of water. So
yeah, I needed to have more water on hand. I took care of that. See, I'm not sure I would survive the zombie apocalypse. I can't even take care of myself when I'm sick.
well,
But I think that's a mom thing.
it definitely is. I'm powered through so many ridiculous illnesses because of them. It's
The kids get me so sick.
oh my gosh, me too. This year is better. This year is the first year I have them both in elementary school and the same school.
Yeah.
Last year they were at two different schools, and it was just like for Thanksgiving, one came home with a stomach virus and the other one came home with a cold, and I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, I feel like my kids are just getting sicker now that they're in school, and that they're being so kind as to share this with me. And I've never been good with immunities. I always get sick back, so it's been a lot of fun for us. But maybe I'll build some up because this year's been terrible with the influenza. So
It has been bad. I feel like we've had something for months, and it's
yeah. Ooh, something went bing bing. What was
yeah, it was my phone. I should have had that on silent.
that? You're an important author, lady. You're probably getting tons of fan mail right now.
Yeah, something like that. Let's
Just
go with
pretend
that.
that you are. Fake it till you make it type deal. That's what I say.
Totally. I was writing about that on my blog today. I was talking about the importance of drinking your own Kool-Aid, and then
Yeah.
if you get past the kind of grossness of that sentence, it's true. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. No, that's a good t-shirt. Yeah, I've always been so weirded out about that's one thing I'm not good at yet. I have people asking me about the book and telling me they like it and approaching me. And they're people I know. They're even friends sometimes, and sometimes they're not, but it shouldn't matter. I always get weird about it. I'm just like, that's cool. I'm glad you like it.
Totally.
I don't know.
I'll have people that other, people that even like acquaintances that they kind of know me, and they'll be like, oh, I got your book. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Don't tell me about it.
Yeah.
I get that fear. I'm like, oh God, don't talk to me about it. I get real anxious.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know why. It is a good book. I reread it because I have to figure out what I'm going to do for my prequel. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty good book. Like, why are you so crappy about it when people ask you? You're like, oh no. Book about stuff, and you don't have to read it. It's cool. You don't have to do that. And it's like they're trying to cut their feet off for you. They're trying to read a book that you wrote and enjoy it. But I get that way.
I do too. And I think, the amount of isolated hours spent on these projects, they're personal, and and I've gotten a lot better at being able to, take feedback and, not freak out when it's like, oh, okay, you need to take out, it'd be better if you took out this part and moved it and turned it. Okay, let's make part. But I spent 3 months on that part.
Yeah.
No. But
yeah, I've been better about that too. At first I was very offended every time my editor said anything, and then I realized she's trying to make your book readable, so stop being subtle.
Totally. Well, and it's
not everyone understands your voice sometimes, Hannah.
Well, and I find myself telling, I tell myself it's called a craft for a reason. People don't just burp out masterpieces. It takes time.
Well, if they do, then we don't like those people. Those people are terrible. That's what Anne Lamott would say. If she knows one writer who just seems to write perfectly from the get-go, but God doesn't love that person. I feel that way. If there are actually people out there like that, I don't know about you, but I'm upset with that person. Yeah. No, I think it is a craft, and it takes a lot of patience and a lot of practice and a lot of humility to understand what your faults are.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's true. There is a certain.
My faults are long sentences. I have long sentences.
So do I.
Don't look for them. Don't open the book and look for them now, because you'll find them.
I get pretty I get drunk with metaphors. I'm trying to be like fancy and like meaningful, and it's like, well, that was just so heavy-handed. You ruined it all.
You are just, let's pour some syrup on this a little bit. Yeah. No, I do that sometimes too. I think it's because I like poetry so much. Sometimes I'm all like, I'm gonna poet here.
Yeah,
Maybe save that for later or never, Hannah.
totally. It's hard sometimes.
Maybe don't poet here.
It's hard
Yeah.
to draw the line where it's like, okay, nobody needs to know that that is, sparkling that much. And it's like, well, but I really feel like I need to talk about how much that is sparkling and it's important.
Sparkling so brilliantly in my head. It's very important, but it's not. So stop doing it.
My stomach twist, and I'm gonna. Anyway, so
I think it's hard for me because I liked books that did that as a kid. J.R.R. Tolkien, everyone's like, oh, he did too much description. I was like, I love it. It's so
yeah,
fancy in my mind. Yeah, I don't know.
no, totally. I'm with you. Well, I can't. The title is escaping me for the moment, but it was a book that I read when I was younger. It was. Oh, this is gonna bug me, but yeah, it's. I'm with you. I like the description too. I want to
Yeah.
feel the scene as much as possible.
Not everybody does. I have to keep telling myself that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The original, the uncut, earlier version of Highly Capable, which was I had self-published as The Adventures of Miss Mindshift, and that
Oh,
was
did you? Oh, that's interesting.
so much of it had changed. I struggled a lot with, what we were talking about earlier. How unlikable people found Ruby. There was it helped Ruby to make it more of a fast-paced story.
Right.
Hurry up and like her. But
We have to get to this next scene where she's not as mean in this scene. I don't know. I liked Ruby. She's kick-ass.
I gotta say, Abigail and Ishmael, I cared about them pretty quickly, and I think of myself sometimes as a hard sell with that. I think sometimes I'm picky with characters. I can't say how true that is, but I really Abigail and Ishmael are awesome.
Yeah, I think it helped that I liked them quite a bit. There's sometimes it's harder for me, like with secondary characters. Like I don't know this person that well yet. You kind of have to wait and edit and sit down and edit to know who that person is. But for me, it was very clear who both of them were. It helps that Abigail is a lot like me. She's not me. There's some things that I wouldn't do that she does, and vice versa. But she's like me, and so that helped. But Ishmael was just something that was just like a conglomeration of a whole bunch of people that I loved and some that I didn't. And there's this and sort of Kiefer Sutherland as well, Lost Boys Kiefer Sutherland, if you can imagine that. And he was so straight in my mind. I knew exactly what he was going to be like.
I gotta be real with you, Hannah. That is who I was picturing. I can't exactly, but that type, that chin,
Yeah.
I was picturing his chin for sure.
Oh yeah, he has a Kiefer chin, and he smoked like Kiefer Sutherland in Lost Boys, so he's like a chimney, that one.
I have a lot of the Lost songs from the soundtrack in playlists.
Yeah.
So at the end of March, you have the Norwest Con coming up.
Yeah, I'll be there doing panels on, like I said, rejection and unlikable heroines. I'm guessing some people dislike her, and violence against women. There's a lot. I write a lot about the fact that women are constantly in the mode of defense and have to be, because they're constantly being attacked in either physical or non-physical ways. And so I'm really proud of being on that panel, and I'm pretty excited about that one. But I'll also just be selling stuff and hanging out, and I'm definitely going to cosplay.
That's awesome.
So that'll be nerdy.
What are you gonna do? Are you gonna? What are your cosplay plans?
So I made an Agatha Heterodyne costume, and that's Girl Genius. I don't know if you've ever read Girl Genius, but it's free online, and anybody should. She just rocks my world. She's a mad scientist. She's a spark, and that's a polite term for it. And she is just this amazing character who grows so much in this comic series. And I can't get enough of her. My daughter likes reading her, and she's just one of those characters who's smart, but also kind of flawed and funny and clumsy and pretty, and so she's just this kind of package deal, and I really like her. So I'm gonna be blonde for NoesCon because she's blonde, um, and I'm probably gonna do some steampunk too. I have just some various steampunk stuff that I might kind of bring out.
Nice. I so girl
I don't
genius.
know. I gained 10 pounds. My steampunk stuff might not fit.
I don't. I've always been interested. I've never done cosplay, but I've thought about it, and I've always been interested in it. I mean, the closest thing that I've come was I was trying to dress up for my daughter was having a Halloween party in her
Yeah.
classroom, and I wanted to come up with like a fun costume, so I was Pepper Potts in an Iron Man costume. But it turned out like I was looking at the pictures, and it's like, well, that's not what I intended at all.
Not what I wanted.
No, not for a kindergarten party, but. Um, so,
Yeah, I love dressing up, and I think it's because I acted a lot as a younger woman. I acted in college and in high school, and getting to put on a completely new persona and be somebody who wasn't you, it's kind of like writing, except you're doing it for real. In real life, you get to kind of put on another person, just like when you're writing. And I find that acting and writing for me give me the same feeling.
oh, interesting.
I get to be other people, and that's cool, especially when you're just sick of being you for a little bit.
Totally.
Sometimes it's boring to be you. You're doing these boring things over and over, and you're like, I kind of want to be Abigail Heterodyne today.
I
And so
totally
I am.
get that. Yeah, sometimes when I'll be doing like, stuff around the house or whatever, I'll be cooking dinner and I'll put my headphones on and I'll write in my head. I'll backtrack while I'm doing other stuff, and it is nice to slip into that fantasy world.
I think people probably think I'm pretty weird because I talk to myself a lot when I'm doing things, and it's mostly because I'm making up dialogue for my books. And I've said that before to other people. I like in my car, if I'm in my car talking, I'm not talking to another person. I am just as crazy as I look. I'm talking to myself, and people have asked me that before, like, "Were you talking on your phone, like hands free?" I'm like, "No, I was talking to myself," and they look at me like you would think they looked at me. I probably could lie, but the fact is I'm gonna get caught sometime just talking to myself, and so I might as well just come out with it.
Well,
I'm weird.
so I work from home, and my coworkers are my three dogs. They're under my feet all the time.
That helps.
I'm walking them. My breaks are centered around them, and I talk to them all the time. And I don't mean like, you're cute little fuzzy whatever. I'm like, yeah, should I do this now, or you know, should I have lunch now or later? And I'll continue if I'm out, without my dogs. I'll continue to talk like this as if they're there. And it was funny because when I leave the house, and my husband also works from home, and when I leave the house, the dogs all lay by the front door as if no one's home. He's like, it's hard not to get, insulted. The dogs, don't even know I'm home. And I talk to them so regularly that when I'm not there talking to them, they don't know what to do with themselves.
They're like, what do we do? Mom's not here talking to us. And I talk to my animals. Animals are awesome because they don't talk. They don't talk back, but they seem to be listening. Like
Oh,
animals seem like good listeners.
they definitely are. My dogs, they get me. They really do.
I think that when you're not good, I wouldn't say I'm bad with people. I'm okay with people, but I was always pretty socially awkward. I loved animals for that reason. I was just like, they didn't seem to be judging me. They just seemed to kind of like me no matter what, and that was a really beautiful thing.
Totally.
Because then I could be really weird and not worry that my basset hound was judging me, which was nice.
That is nice. Basset hound. I've never had one, but I've always been a fan of their ears.
Yeah, he was one of our first. She was one of our first dogs. Her name was Chloe, and she was just so sweet. And when she was a puppy, she really did trip over her ears. It was pretty amusing, and she would do the whole roll thing, where she would trip on her ears and do complete rolls. That was pretty amazing. I have a mutt now, and he's great. He digs up my garden, which isn't fun, but we're working on it.
Yeah. I saw pictures of your dog. His eyes are so sweet. He looks like a sweetheart.
He has sad eyes. He has those huge puppy dog eyes, and people are like, "Are you always yelling at him?" Like, no, it's just what his eyes look like. He's not sad. That's just how he looks, no matter what. But yeah, he just has those giant eyes, and they're always just look a little bit melancholy. But he is not. He's a funny dog. He runs away 24/7, then comes back for food. But he's very lively. He's not sad. Just tell people that if they see his sad dog eyes.
I definitely will have his back.
Okay. Cookie's not a sad dog. He's super happy.
What's it?
His name is Cookie Donut Jones, by the way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Our favorite things.
Cookies and donuts are awesome.
They are.
No, my one dog, Sally, my daughter gave her name after the character in Cat in the Hat.
Oh yeah.
Or Cars.
Yeah, I love Cat in the Hat.
It might be Cars depending on the time frame, but I'm going to go ahead and say Cat in the Hat. And then we have Jake, who was named after our other dog, Jake, who was a rescue, and we named him Jake the Great, Junior. And then they had I didn't get their situations closed up over the summer, and we had a surprise litter of puppies, and it was honestly just the coolest thing. I loved it, and we kept the biggest boy, and that's our Bilbo Baggins.
Oh man, you have a Bilbo? I totally wanted Cookie to be Bilbo, but my kids were not on board with that. That's amazing. I'm pretty happy for you.
I was actually going to name him Luke, and it was so close to Jake that it was causing some difficulties. And then my husband was actually the one who's like, no, hey, that's Bilbo Baggins. And it's funny because he's a thief.
That works then.
It does. It really does. He can take a paper towel right out of your hand and you don't even realize it.
He probably got a One Ring somewhere hidden.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's pretty awesome. I kind of want a Bilbo Baggins dog. I have a Bilbo Baggins tattoo.
I know, it's awesome. That's awesome. I've been enjoying it.
I'm pretty sad they wouldn't let me name it now. I know you have a Bilbo, and now I'm feeling like I got the raw end of the deal.
I gotta
tell your husband that's a cool name.
Yeah, I love it because I call him Bilbo, but like when he's he's doing something naughty or he's not coming, I can drop the whole name and it's awesome. Well, actually now, because like
probably call him a nasty hoppitses if you want to. I totally get creative with this.
It is. It's fun. It's good stuff. And there's a lot of fun you can have it because both of his parents are here and he's never left this house and he's like the most comfortable, submissive dog ever because he's never had an interruption in his life. And it's funny. It's like, this is his shire.
Yeah, it is. Oh, that's cute. That's fun.
Well, thank you so much for, braving the very first podcast. And
no problem. I'm good at talking.
This has been a lot of fun. It's funny because, we've done a couple of events for other book releases before, and you've been a part of, I think, one of my events before, and I feel like I know you a little bit, so it's been fun to have you on.
Well, I'm just thankful that you had me as your very first guest, and I hope that you have very many more to come and that it goes well for you. I'll certainly pass around the information for your podcast when it's out.
Awesome. And you want to tell everyone where to find your stuff at?
I'm HM Jones, and you can go to my website, www.hmjones.net, and all my social sites are on there as well. You can sign up for my newsletter, which I just created last week. But yeah, that's where you find me.
And I'm actually, as of this morning, I've signed up for your newsletter.
I saw that.
Nice.
I was like, woohoo, another follower. Yoo-hoo, it's Jayme. I think I probably have a handful of people following it. And I know that 2 of them are just stalking me to see if I'll actually put chapter inserts from my newest book in there, which is great.
Nice. Yeah, that is awesome.
I hope to.
Nice. I'm looking forward to reading it.
I won't until you're done with monochrome. Don't do it yet, Hannah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll let you know when I'm done.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me, Jayme.
Thank you. Well, that's it for tonight. It was great having H.M. Jones on the show, and thank you for listening. To find out more about me, follow me on Twitter at @meBettingfield, or follow the show at Too Many Words Pod, TOO, Many Words POD. To find out about my books, about me, creative writing pieces that I post up there, all sorts of good stuff, upcoming events, go to my site at JaymeTheScribbler.com. That's JAYME, thescribbler.com. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you next week.